We have a liftoff. All engines building up thrust. Moving out. Clear the tower.
Roger, tower clear. Roger, Tom, you got good thrust on all engines here, right on the money. 30 seconds, we're on the way. Stand by for mode 1 Bravo. Mark, 1 Bravo. 1 Bravo, energies. Roger, pressure coming down. Roger.
Apollo Houston, you're go for station.
Roger, go.
It was a long time ago, when we were enemies and rivals. Now, we are friends. For nearly 20 years, we have operated the International Space Station together. A true partnership that brought the world closer and furthered our knowledge of Earth and space. How did we get here? The Soviets launched Sputnik in 1957 and flew a dog, Laika, a month later. The Americans answered with 2 monkeys, Abel and Baker. The Soviets flew the first man into space, Gagarin. The Americans answered with Shepard and Glenn.
Cabin holding at 5.5. I understand. Cabin holding at 5.5.
Then President Kennedy increased the stakes, and the moon became the goal.
I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal before this decade is out of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the Earth. No single space project in this period will be more impressive to mankind or more important for the long-range exploration of space, and none will be so difficult or expensive to accomplish.
The Soviets had Vostok, Voskhod, and Soyuz. The Americans had Mercury, Gemini, and Apollo. Both sides paid a heavy price. The Soviets lost Bondarenko, Komarov, Dobrovolsky, Patsayev, and Volkov. The Americans lost Grissom, White, and Chaffee. All are remembered. When Armstrong and Aldrin set foot on the moon in July 1969,
One small step for man.
the space race was over.
Giant leap for mankind. That's right, from the lunar. Up now. You can see the stars. That's right, from the lunar. Beautiful, just beautiful.
The Americans had won. Then what? Cooperation. On July 15, 1975, Soyuz 19 launched cosmonauts Alexei Leonov and Valery Kubasov from the Baikonur Cosmodrome. 5.5 hours later, astronauts Deke Slayton, Thomas Stafford, and Vance Brand left the Earth on a Saturn 1B and rendezvoused with their Soviet counterparts.
We have a liftoff. All engines building up thrust. Moving out. Clear the tower.
30 seconds, we're on the way. Stand by for mode 1 Bravo. Mark, 1 Bravo. 1 Bravo, 2 Gs. Roger. Cabin pressure's coming down. Roger.
2 days later, Stafford and Leonov shook hands through the hatch of Soyuz.
Здравствуйте, Alexei. Glad to see you. Here. Здравствуйте, Alexei. Очень рад видеть вас. Очень рад. Это роща день. Советский Союз, Соединенных Штатов.
The Cold War was paused, and for the first time in history, the Americans and Soviets cooperated in space.
I think this program turned out to be a lot more important for our countries, and particularly the political aspects, because 6 billion people were watching us, and they could realize that there is a way to live differently. There is a way to deal with each other in a different manner.
It didn't last long. Tensions between the two countries on Earth hindered space cooperation for nearly 20 years. Then, in February 1994, Sergei Krikalev became the first cosmonaut to fly on a U.S. space shuttle.
And there's Sergei as well with a small laser, which is the white thing, and the accelerometer on top. He's undergoing sinusoidal head oscillations. We performed these exercises on day 1, 2, 5, 6, 7, and 8 with Jan, Sergei, myself, and Ken.
A year later, in March 1995, astronaut Norm Thagard was the first astronaut to fly to the Mir space station.
We got to recreate an event that took place 20 years ago, almost to the day. The handshake between Tom Stafford and Alexei Leonov in the Apollo-Soyuz docking, and of course we were able to recreate this on flight day 3 of STS-71.
After our flight, there was another program, joint program, Shuttle Mir program. They have done everything very accurately, and which was basically the continuation of what we have started. And it was a part of cooperation between USA and Russia.
And it really started out with Shuttle Mir, which was a natural extension, and then from Shuttle Mir to the International Space Station.
Cooperation turned to partnership when the United States and Russia spearheaded the effort to build the International Space Station. 15 countries signed the initial agreement in January 1998. Less than a year later, on December 10th, the U.S. and Russian crew of STS-88 joined the U.S.-built Unity node to the Russian-built Zarya service module. The International Space Station became a reality, though it would take 2 more years of construction before the first inhabitants would live and work there. Astronaut William Shepard, along with cosmonauts Sergei Krikalev and Yuri Gidzenko, entered the station on November 2nd, 2000. They would remain there for 4.5 months.
To me, the most important part is bringing these 15 countries together and having been able to agree to work on things and see how, in a way, how flawlessly it's gone. I look back now in a perspective back, say, over my shoulder in history. So I think it was really wonderful. I had the opportunity to work with Alexei Leonov and Valery Kubasov, the other Soviet peoples, now Russian, and bring this together.
There has been a continual presence on the International Space Station. 390 flights, 227 people, 18 countries, 10 different space agencies. We've come a long way since Sputnik. We've set foot on the moon. We've reached for the stars. We've conducted thousands of experiments. We studied the Earth. We've expanded our horizons and brought people together. So where do we go from here? Well, that's up to you.